I ride many different adventure motorbikes, and this is my review for the Triumph Tiger 900 Rally Pro. I've tried and tested many different medium-sized adventure bikes, and now I'm going to share my impressions along with a video at the end of my final comparison in terms of configuration and the numbers. There are no ideal bikes, especially when it comes to mid-size adventure bikes. This is the most compromised class with adventure bikes, and 1200 motorcycles are more comfortable. There is no perfect balance in this class, although each manufacturer tries to find it, moving the slider between road bikes and off-road bikes. The new Tiger 900 line was released to replace the 800s, basic road bikes stripped down, 3 more road versions of GT, formerly called XR, and 2 Rally, formerly called XC. The cheaper 850 Sport model came later. Compared to the Tiger 800, the 900 is slightly lighter, the ground clearance is slightly higher, and the center of gravity is slightly lower due to the small crankcase. All the press releases talk about the engine change, how well it imitates the V-twin and Yamaha R1. So Tiger has 2 main versions. The first is a more road-going GT with 19-inch and 17-inch alloy wheels, a 180mm fork, and a 170mm shock absorber. In general, a typical crossover for road, a competitor to Ducati and most Japanese bikes, a decent bike that I'll make a good review about. According to Triumph, only 15% of Tiger owners ride off-road, so it would be stupid if performance on the road was not a priority to base the development of the GT version on. Off-road rally, in my opinion, was a non-priority, and road performance was going to be compromised by pandering to it. Although the Rally has very interesting parameters, 21 and 17-inch spoked wheels, adjustable shock absorbers with travel 230mm and 240mm fork. At the same time, the diameter of the legs is already 45mm. Impressive performance. Only the motorcycles of the KTM 790, 890R, and Rally have longer travel suspension. Triumph is not going to disclose the technical data, indicating the dry weight, and I couldn't find the size of the ground clearance in any source at all. The weight is obvious. If you estimate the volume of the tank, add oil with brake fluid and antifreeze, the curb weight of the GT will come out to somewhere around 250 kilograms. For the Rally, it is about 220 kilograms. But to understand ground clearance parameter, I had to go to the dealer with a tape measurer. It turned out that GT has a clearance of about 190mm and the Rally has 230mm. Real 230mm on a fueled bike is more than enough for an adventure bike. Tiger is the most direct competitor to the BMW 850 GS, but when you approach the Tiger, you can see and feel the luxury of the bike in the details. Everything is very neat and stylish. BMW is somehow simpler, even if you don't know that this Bavarian beast has a Chinese engine. Look-wise, I like the Tiger more than any other bike in this class, especially in green, which was my test bike. Black and white are also available. What's funny is that green is kind of military and only available on the Rally version, and red is sporty and it's only available on the GT. On price, the Tiger 900 is almost identical to BMW. It wins in little rich configurations because most of the chips are immediately available in medium versions for 13,000 euros for the GT or 14,000 euros for the Rally. Exactly like the 850 GS Adventure, but it will be naked in electronics. For 15,500 euros, the top spec of the Rally Pro with every needful piece of configuration turns out to be more expensive than a BMW with similar setup. In the cheapest version, there is no cruise control, sockets, fork adjustments, heated grips, and it's either completely without traction control or with a simplified one. And, as a result, there are no sports and off-road engine modes. The Rally Pro version also includes crash bars, LED fog lights, increased engine protection, quick shifter, tire pressure monitor system, illuminated buttons on the handlebar, heated rider and passenger seat, cornering ABS, and Bluetooth for phones with navigation and GoPro controls. You also get 2 riding modes, Off-Road Pro with disengageable ABS and fully programmable. In terms of the choice of options, the Tiger outshines all bikes in its class, even the Ducati with its enormous price tag. Personally, I'm cool with the options, because almost everything can be installed separately without any problems. But I know quite a few people who are categorically against this and prefer everything to be original down to the bolts. What I love about Triumph is that you can add almost any option separately. For example, if you want navigation, go buy a separate Bluetooth unit for reasonable money and use it. At BMW and Ducati, the policy is different. You need navigation? Buy a set of 3 or 4 options in a package that you may not even need. But if you delve into it, then not everything is so smooth. For example, if a person just decided to buy the cheapest option for tough off-road biking, he will need an opportunity to disable the ABS function on both wheels, which is only available in the top version of Rally Pro, while this function is free from the manufacturer. Navigation, as in every other model, does not show a map, but only a diagram of the intersection and how far to turn. It works through the My Triumph app, which, lo and behold, is integrated with Google Maps, so you can really use it. It won't replace a full-fledged navigator. On the paths and in the mountains, it is convenient to see the turn profiles on the maps, and with difficult intersections in the city, it is also a problem. But in conditions when the navigator says after 700 kilometers turn right, you cannot take the phone out of your pocket most of the time. Tiger has 3 sockets at once. There are 12-volt DIN sockets in the front and back, as well as a USB socket under the seat with a compartment for the phone. In general, such charging points make sense for neat sports bikes and naked cafe risers where people travel without pockets. This container is not an element of the adventure motorcycle basic model, and hiking or adventure clothing has waterproof pockets. I think it's uncomfortable. While traveling, hold the phone under the seat, and you should take the phone out every time you stop. But for charging batteries, it's okay. You can even broad out of this pocket the wire. Cruise control is simple and convenient. Usually 3-4 buttons, 2 are performed here. On the other hand, KTM fits everything into one joystick. Stylish and comfortable fork adjusters are available in all versions with mechanical fork adjustments. To be honest, I don't understand the worldwide conspiracy why fork adjusters are not put in all motorcycles. Okay, foolproof protection for motorcycles for beginners, but at least on sports bikes and adventure motorcycles, why not put them in as standard? There's also a convenient adjuster for the rear shock absorber. GT Pro and Rally versions have electronically adjusted rear shock. What upset me from the very beginning, the starter works only with a squeeze clutch. That is a feature of Triumph motorcycles. That doesn't make sense. We made a great quickshifter so you don't need to squeeze out the clutch, but to keep your left hand as muscular as your right, you need to be squeezing the clutch every time you start the engine. Is it possible to pay another 1,000 euros for the option so that the clutch is not squeeze out? Unless I have bought a clutch start bike. I thought it's not that bad. On a test ride it doesn't matter at all, but it's actually an annoying thing. The most frequent scenario is when you approach a motorcycle with a helmet in which there is all sorts of junk like in a basket. You want to start the motorcycle and slowly get everything out of the helmet and dress so that the engine will run a little. And at that time when you need to squeeze out the clutch, you can't put your helmet on the motorcycle because everything will fall out of it. And you have to uproot, throw your hands over the helmet, over the tank, etc. The second impression is that the electronics interfere with the work of the clutch, which is not even in a tight electronic BMW. This is not a drawback, it's just a nuance. While you're letting go a little of the clutch to get a feel of where the grip moment is going, the engine revs up. Squeeze the clutch, after a couple seconds the revs are reset. This is an assistant at the start, which helps push through in traffic jams, but you need to get used to it a little. Now to the main disadvantage of a motorcycle. The engine. The first thing that confuses, looking at the specification, is the official consumption of 5.2 liters per 100 kilometers. New bikes of this class have lower consumption. Higher only is the sporty Ducati, but among mid-sized adventure bikes with off-road hints, that's a bit much. Many prefer medium-sized bikes relative to 1200s due to lower consumption rate. Other models of this class have a consumption rate somewhere around 4.2 to 4.5 liters. For the super economical, there's the NC750, which generally needs 3.5 liters per 100 kilometers. Why, according to the WMTC standard, which is close to reality, the giant BMW 1250 GS has a consumption of 4.75 liters per 100 kilometers. Accordingly, a 20-liter tank is enough for the Tiger to get about 350, a maximum of 400 kilometers in usual mode. Not a lot for the adventure motorcycle. I talked about this in the video about BMW and will not repeat myself. By the way, the Tiger 800 also has a voracious engine when compared to the more economical BMW 800 GS. The engine accelerates perfectly. I especially like how it speeds up in the cities or off-road. Good torque at low revs, at very low revs. For a comfortable ride in the city, you hardly need to twist the throttle, which gives you special pleasure in traffic jams, especially if you're crossing from less cubic bikes. Works without dips, thrusts over a wide range. Here they changed the firing order from the ignition, which is classic for the Tigers. At the time of the firing, the bike pushes forward, so on other models, Triumph used to distribute the firings evenly over time for even thrust. In the Tiger 900, the two firings are placed one after one without pause, which lengthens the moment of push. This is necessary for off-roading, so that at the lowest RPM, there are stronger and more prolonged pushes. On the one hand, there is a luscious muffler sound that is similar to the Big V twin. On the other hand, there is a certain whistle of the engine that many people don't like in the city. On the highway, from 90 kilometers an hour, the sound practically disappears. The engine is almost inaudible, and there is good acoustic comfort while traveling. The compression ratio of 11.2 is quite low for the class, which makes sense in places where gasoline is poor, while the KTM 790 and BMW 850 have 12.7 compression. On the other hand, in Asia or Africa, at gas stations from canisters, the problem is not in the low octane number and quality of the mixture, but the fact that the gasoline is massively diluted with water. As the simplest way, and engines with low compression ratio do not like water. Therefore, it's no solution. But on the highway, everything is not so rosy with the engine. Gaining speed? Good, yes. Due to its slow revving nature, the bike is tuned for low or medium speeds. The engine quickly accelerates to 150 km per hour, then the speed gain is rather slow. But the problem is not there. At 120 km per hour, an unpleasant vibration begins. At 130 km, it's very bad and then it intensifies. This is the legal highway speed in many countries. Note that I have ridden 3 different Tiger 900s, all have these vibrations. And on the new Tiger 900s, alas, the vibrations are annoying. But there are no vibrations all up until 120 kilometers. Just magic. In Spain, almost all highways I allow a speed limit, including an error up to 128 kilometers per hour. For me, this would be a problem, and I would not want to ride with such vibrations even for 1 hour. Whether this movement is important for you depends on how fast you want to ride. This was especially frustrating after riding the Tiger 800, which had one of the softest engines in its class. In one review, I read that the engine burns the feet. I tested the bike at 35 degrees in jeans with knee pads, and after an off-road section, you can usually feel the heat from your engine, but there was nothing special here at all. Everything is like every other bike. I also traveled on another Tiger 900 with the average temperature of about 39 degrees. I can't say that there was any discomfort from the engine. There are several riding modes, adjusted ABS, throttle response, and traction control levels for each mode. Due to the fact that the bike is dynamic, the switching of these modes is immediately felt in the direction of the throttle stick and in the power at the start. Off-road modes only turn on and off when the motorcycle stands still. This is an artificial limitation that is annoying. The classic scenario, you suddenly find yourself on a dirt road that is obviously going to be long. In most bikes, you just switch the mode and go. Close the throttle and that's all. Here, the selection is not available until you stop. And the opposite situation, the dirt road ends, you ride up onto a road, but you have to again make a stop. Now, on ergonomics. Windscreen has manual lifting, not bad for a stock one and with a height of up to 180 centimeters. Most likely, it's not even worth changing to some kind of touring one. If I hunch over a little, that's perfect. For my 188 centimeters, it's not quite enough to completely protect me from the wind, but many people like the feel when the wind blows over their face. Here, it does not hit the helmet, it just blows a little. Plus, there's a hole in the windscreen, so there's no turbulence zones and a little bit blows over your face, even when you're short in height. The overall aerodynamics of the motorcycle is also excellent. The wind does not hit anywhere, you can travel for a long time. The mirrors are also great. Very large, you can see everything, and they do not shake. The fit for tall riders is comfortable, but the hips rest exactly in the lower panels joint. That is if you prefer non-hinged knee pads and something like jeans. And also hold onto the tank with your feet, as taught in motorcycle school. And get ready for the pain. Seriously, quite unpleasant because the bottom bar protrudes from the side panel and has a rather sharp edge. In standing position, you will have the same problem. With bent knees, legs don't stick to the tank at all. I tried to bend in different ways, but always ended up resting against some panel joints. In the optimal position, the knees rest exactly on the seam of the panels, which is not made at the same level. Not only does it rub with an angle, there's also no traction. They say that if you remove the panels from the bars, the problem will go away, but it was not possible for me to find that out. But there are no complaints about the position of the handlebar, even for my height. Moreover, if you put the handlebars in a more vertical position on the Tiger 900, it will be the straightest in the class, very comfortable while riding standing. On the Tiger 900, the foot pegs have been moved back by 2 centimeters compared to the previous generation. But I worry that on the Tiger, there is a specific sitting for the adventure motorcycle, if you sit at the lowest point, and it does not work closer to the tank. All the same, the butt will slide down after a while. Which is strange because on the entire line of medium and large Tigers, there was a normal seat with the lowest point in the forward position near the tank. People clearly knew what and why they were doing, and now the shape of the seat for some reason has radically changed. And strangely enough, the Atlia has clearly not changed. All the lines are exactly like the old Tiger. When I was riding, I did not analyze so deeply, but I noticed that the motorcycle was trying to catapult me. Then I realized this is not so much because of the rear elastic shock absorber, but because of the seating. And the seat itself does not imply another long sitting, because at rest the butt rolls to the lowest point. If we talk about traveling for long distances without stopping, I love when the seat allows you to wiggle and change position so that the body does not get numb, but this is not critical. Many people like it when I talk about touring, so I will try to explain. There is a stereotype that it is most convenient to travel on sofas with completely upright seating position. In fact, on an average adventure bike, you can easily ride along any road all day without stopping and your ass does not get tired. But on a luxury cruiser, your butt and legs will still feel numb and you will need stops. The bottom line is that it is normal for adventure bikes to have the footsteps just below the body. As, however, all adventure bikes, and even modern classics, have such sitting. In this case, the legs on the foot pegs always level the irregularities, so that there are no blows on your back, but your ass is not glued to the seat. It gives loading onto your legs. In addition, it is needed for lifting up into a standing position. When your foot is level under the body, when you stand up, your hands are not involved in any way. You can easily stand up and sit down without holding on with your hands at all. It is also important that when you get up on such a footrest, there is nothing rolling either forward or backward. The same balance is maintained as it was. In ordinary touring conditions, it works like this. You're rushing on a relatively flat surface, you see large bumps and instantly get up, while you can turn the handlebar at the same time as lifting up. When the foot pegs are extended further forward, as on retro motorcycles, cruisers, and scooters, the load is on the butts and spine, the legs are not involved in any way. On city trips, this is normal, and there is even a plus in the fact that you can comfortably put your feet on the ground behind the foot pegs closer to the bike, and there is a plus when laying on corners. There is no chance that your forefoot will catch the road and your foot will be turned out. But on a relief surface, it feels so-so. You are not gently pushed up, but you are catapulted forward. Of course, within the framework of the educational program, an exaggerated comparison and sitting on a Tiger is far from like on a cruiser, but here seat feels like on any kind of retro motorcycle. A wide tank affects not only the sitting, the tank has bulging tips. The motorcycle can roll off the crash bars and fall on these parts. This is the problem with many wide motorcycles. It has such options for a reason. And indirectly, this is the problem of high fuel consumption. With lower consumption, you can make the tank smaller but at the same range. Handguards is good, flexible with almost no chance of breaking it. At the same time, wind protection gives an additional protection on the hands. I don't remember about the brake lever, but the clutch lever is precisely with a strong reverse motion, which protects against breakage. The bifurcated radiator, as I understand, was made only to make it more convenient to place the engine. But considering that the main dirt flies from the wheel exactly in the middle, where the plastic separator is good even for bad weather in the city, I like this design. The dashboard itself is good in quality, very bright and contrasting to the sun. You can choose the style of information display. As for me, so far not a single bike manufacturer, except Multistrada V4, which has a normal interface, they all look like the interfaces of cars, at best 5 years ago. Apparently, they play enough with the decorations, and in 5 years we can expect a calm, user-friendly interface. Triumph's dashboard is still very far from ideal. It was definitely drawn by a person who does not travel on motorcycles. In most styles, the dashboard space is taken up by 2 tachometers just for beauty, which shimmer with colors. At the same time, it is difficult to read the tachometer readings outright. There's just a mess. The design probably sells motorcycles, but it's visual noise that bothers to see the important indicators. Who even looks at the tachometer other than the first week after purchase? There are several styles for information displaying, but it doesn't help much. Just less or more parameters on the dashboard. In the basic version, the dashboard is 2 inches smaller than the other versions, and I would deliberately choose the smaller size. There's nothing to watch there yet. The seat can be positioned in 2 positions. It is very comfortable for the pilot, at the level of the best custom ones, and looks stylish. I can't imagine who would like to change it for another one. There are questions about the semicircular shape, as I said, but from the point of view of comfort, it is very good. The passenger has a fairly wide seat and the foot pegs are widely spaced, literally the widest passenger seat in the class. If we compare with Tenere or KTM, then the difference in the extreme points of the passenger footrest will reach 10 centimeters. For the Tiger, it is 78 centimeters, despite the fact that all rests have standard platforms of 9 centimeters each, and for the Tiger, 8 centimeters, but they are still the widest. It's due to the muffler's position. Related to this fact is that if the passenger is miniature, he may be uncomfortable on long trips due to the constant squeezing of the hip. Here, you need to sit at a dealer when you buy it and make sure that it fits anatomically. On the other hand, for people with medium or tall height, inverse situation, it will be more comfortable than most motorcycles. This problem is typical for scooters. I think many will understand it. In general, if riding in traffic jams is a priority for you, the Tiger is not suitable for this. Judge for yourself. At the extreme points of hand protection, Tenere and KTM are 90 centimeters. BMW and Triumph are somewhere around 95 and 96. 5 to 6 centimeters in traffic is a significant difference. If this calms you down, starting from 1000 cc, many motorcycles have 100 centimeters or more, even a thin Africa Twin. At this point, someone wants to argue that the handlebar goes above the mirrors of cars. Well, first of all, with the popularity of SUVs, the handlebar is not that easy and the difference in the width of the handlebars is decisive. Even in hard traffic jams, the width along the side pads of the tank during maneuvers matters, but less. Everything is bad for Triumph here, about 70 centimeters, which exceeds, for example, Tenere by almost 20 centimeters, 850 GS by 15 centimeters. And in general, they are all significantly more competitors, even 1000cc motorcycles. In short, whatever point you take, the Tiger will be wider than its main competitors. Is there a significant difference? Oh yeah. I used to live outside of the city and at home from the center of Moscow almost always rode along the same road. Sometimes on a Honda Cross Tour, which is far from the widest among adventure motorcycles, and I passed above the mirrors of any cars, but while overtaking SUVs, I should do a slight slope. I always got home in an hour and 15 minutes. When I rode the DRZ 400, I never managed to ride longer than 45 minutes. Although, on sections of the highway, I could not physically ride at the speed of the Cross Tour, where the Cross Tour closed the gap. There are interesting off-road tricks. You can easily unscrew the passenger foot pegs from the frame. This is much safer when falling and leaves more freedom of movement. Even in the new version, the subframe is bolted, i.e. less tragic consequences in case of a serious fall. Another interesting idea, in the rally version, the brake pedal height is changed in 10 seconds by simply flipping the foot, as on some multistradas. In the GT version, the brake pedal is straightforward. The Tiger 900 has ample opportunities for customizing ergonomics for yourself. It pleases. I really like the way the brakes work, sharp and precise. The front brakes are 4-piston, not 2-piston as in most adventure bikes, and the discs themselves 320mm in front. Even the old Tiger 800 had 2-piston Nissan, but now it is suddenly updated to the top-end Brembo line. Actually, Brembo's dilemma at the time of this review of all adventure motorcycles and crossovers is installed only on Multistrada and Tiger 900. Even the Tiger 1200 has simpler brakes. The 2022 version will also have Brembo's dilemma. And the rear brake was made single piston, which is already worse than some competitors. On the one hand, less force, which is logical off-road, but on the other hand, it is more difficult to control the pressure of a single piston caliper, and indeed, on loose surfaces, the Tiger's real wheel is easy to block. But if you ride only one motorcycle, not in off-road boots, it's a matter of habit. In the KTM, as it is for off-road, it is still not for nothing that they put two piston calipers in the back. There, the pressing force is much better controlled. Either way, these are excellent brakes for dynamic riding, and certainly better than its main competitor, the BMW 850 GS. Suspension is good, but you have to understand that it tends to be bouncy, the same concept as the KTM or hard endure bikes. The front fork can be adjusted as you like, no questions, if you do not find at fault that the angle of inclination of the fork is more for road. But this is a problem of most modern 1000cc adventure motorcycles. The bike still dives when the travel is clamped, but much less than most bikes with similar suspension travels. But in some off-road situations, the back of the motorcycle can slightly throw up. The suspension of the dirt roads with the bias and handling is not in comfort. Compared to the BMW, the latter will give more softness. But on the road, the Tiger behaves a little better. But this is within the framework of taste preferences. Naturally, not a sport touring bike, but it also goes into turns well, while swallowing some small irregularities without turning to jelly. Some joints are not felt, but flying imperceptibly through speed bumps like a BMW, it won't work. It might scare someone right now that the bike is tough. Not at all, it's just that the suspension here is more knocked down than the BMW. The suspension travels are even greater, but this is not felt. It is comfy for the road, but you can ride more aggressively. It steers better on twisty roads. In terms of character on bumps, it is closer to hardcore motorcycles such as the Tenere 700 or the KTM 790 than other models of this class. Anyone who buys a luxury motorcycle for travel may not come by this excessive jumping ability, especially when moving from older bikes which usually have a very soft suspension. Naturally, there was not even a hint of the insidious moments of a breakdown or poor working out of pits and bumps, only tossing the rear wheel. Yes, this is not a full-fledged off-road, but there are many places with sharp pits and bumps. It is clear to them how everything works in more hard conditions. But there is something that can raise questions if you do not like active riding. I think my impression is based on the bike's weight distribution. Actually, the manufacturer indicates that the center of gravity is now shifted forward and downward, which is great for road. The center of gravity is perfect. The bike feels weightless. When leaving the road, I internally summed up and caught myself thinking that I had not felt the weight of the motorcycle in any way, and that was great. The only but, I had a persistent feeling that the motorcycle was more loaded in the front. But it was the motorcycle with bars, there was a lot of gas in the tank, there was no luggage or frames in the back. The grip of the wheel with the ground was very unstable in this configuration. Even in a light ride over bumps, it consistently bounced into the air where it was not necessary. Much more often than other motorcycles tested here, which in identical conditions were held by two wheels. In principle, if you look at real conditions, when panniers, jerry cans, or at least some kind of load will be installed on the motorcycle, the rear of the motorcycle should press down and behave differently. Perhaps the engineers selected the shock absorber for such occasions. In standing position 2, the rear wheel will be better pressed. Results. For me, the Tiger is a big disappointment because it is very close to ideal, but it ruined everything with a few details. This is a very beautiful bike, comfortable with all the benefits of civilization, and most importantly, what distinguishes it from the majority in its class is a very good off-road capability. It has no drawbacks that take me away from BMW. The Tiger has ideal brakes for my taste, it has great dynamics, and it even feels lighter. But the disadvantages mean I won't consider it for long-distance travel. Firstly, the range is not particularly impressive due to the slightly more veracity of the engine. But okay, it's not that important. The main disadvantage is noticeable vibrations at high speeds. If you ride up to 120 km per hour, the bike is great. After 120, it annoys. You can fight this with anti-vibration handlebar spacers, etc., but I have not tried how much they will help in the case of the Tiger. Otherwise, the bike is as comfortable as a BMW, and the choice between the two is more in terms of riding styles. The Tiger is more active, BMW is calmer and softer. I remind you that later I'll shoot a large comparison video about mid-size adventure bikes. Subscribe to not miss